They told her it was just a formality before the wedding, just something everyone does. She didn't think twice. She was in love, and she trusted them. Her name was Madison Clark, and this is the story of how she almost lost everything because of one signature, and how she fought to take it all back. Please stay with me as I tell you her story, and please don't forget to support our channel by subscribing, liking, and sharing with your loved ones. She was about to marry Jason Whitmore. He was kind, smart, and came from a very rich family. His parents were polite to her, but she could always feel something fake behind their smiles. Still, she thought maybe it was just nerves. Maybe they would warm up to her over time. The night before the wedding, they brought her a thick stack of papers. Jason's mother smiled and said, "It's just a prenup, sweetie. All marriages have them. Just sign it so we can enjoy tomorrow." She didn't read it carefully. She didn't ask questions. She just trusted them. She signed it. The wedding was beautiful, a big, expensive event at their family estate. Everything looked perfect. But almost right after the wedding, Jason began to change. He was cold, short with her, distant. She told herself it was stress or work, but it kept getting worse. He stopped listening. He started controlling what she wore, who she talked to, and how she spent money. Then strange things started happening. Her bank account froze. Her name was gone from her apartment deed. She asked Jason about it, and he just brushed her off. She tried asking his mother, and she said with a smile, "You signed. You belong to us now." That's when she knew something was very wrong. The paper she signed, it wasn't a prenup. It was something else. Something much worse. She didn't know yet how deep the damage went, but she knew this wasn't love. This was a trap. She had been tricked by the people she thought were going to be her family, but she wasn't going to let them destroy her, not without a fight. This is the story of how she uncovered the truth, how she got her life back, and how she made sure they could never do this to another woman again. Madison thought she was doing the right thing when she signed the papers. It was the night before her wedding, and Jason's family handed her a thick document. His mother smiled and said, "It's just a prenup. Everyone signs one." Madison felt a little unsure, but they were all watching her, waiting. She didn't want to cause problems or look ungrateful, so she signed it without reading every word. The wedding was the kind most girls dream of, a huge estate in Connecticut, full of flowers, music, and fancy guests. Everyone smiled, took pictures, and praised how perfect they looked together. Madison tried to enjoy the day, believing her future was going to be safe and happy, but things started changing almost right away. Jason was different. The warmth in his voice was gone. He stopped calling her sweet names. He acted annoyed when she asked questions. At first she thought maybe he was tired from the wedding stress, but days turned into weeks, and he only got colder. He criticized her clothes, her tone, even how much coffee she drank. He said she didn't need to work and took away her business contacts for her own good. Slowly, Madison started to feel like she wasn't a wife. She was a prisoner in a golden cage. Then her credit cards stopped working. Her bank account showed zero balance. She tried to contact her lawyer about the prenup, but he was unavailable. Her emails started bouncing back. She felt like she was going crazy. She reached out to her old friend Brittany, someone she trusted. Brittany, a former paralegal, offered to take a look at the document Madison had signed. What Brittany found left them both speechless. It wasn't a prenup at all. It was a full waiver, something that gave up all of Madison's rights, not just to Jason's property, but also to her own. She had unknowingly signed away any claim to inheritance, any right to their future home, and even her right to file for divorce. It was a legal trap, disguised as something normal. Madison felt her heart sink, but now she knew the truth, and she wasn't going to stay quiet. What they had done was wrong, and she was going to make sure they paid for it. After the wedding, Madison quickly realized her life was no longer her own. At first, it was small things. Jason asking her to quit her job to focus on their home. Then he took her phone, saying he'd get her a better one. But the new phone came with restrictions. He had the passwords. He could see everything. Her calls were monitored. Her messages disappeared before she could even reply. Jason's family slowly pulled her away from everyone she cared about. Friends who tried to visit were turned away. Calls from her parents were missed or answered by someone else. She wasn't allowed to leave the house alone. If she asked why, Jason would say, "It's for your safety." When she pushed back, he called her ungrateful or dramatic. Soon, Madison began to feel like she was going crazy. Jason would twist her words and make her question her memory. He would say she forgot things she clearly remembered. When she cried or showed anger, he told others she was too emotional or unstable. His family whispered behind her back, always with smiles on their faces. One day, she confronted Jason's mother. Madison asked directly why they were treating her this way, why she wasn't allowed to make decisions or speak for herself. Jason's mother calmly sipped her tea, then looked Madison straight in the eyes and said, "You signed. You belong to us now." That sentence stayed in Madison's mind like a dark echo. She realized this wasn't just about control. It was a plan. They had trapped her, legally, emotionally, and no one on the outside knew. But Madison wasn't ready to give up. She started hiding an old phone, one they didn't know about. Quietly, she recorded conversations, moments where Jason admitted to taking her money, times his father bragged about making sure women stay in their place. She saved text messages, screenshots, anything she could find, every whisper, every insult, every threat. She didn't know exactly what she'd do with the evidence yet, but she knew she needed it. It was the only way she could prove the truth, the only way anyone would believe her. She'd been isolated, gaslighted, and stripped of her freedom, but Madison was done being silent. One rainy afternoon, while Jason was away on a business trip, Madison wandered into his office. He always told her to stay out, but this time she didn't care. Her gut told her something was hidden there, something she needed to see. The room smelled like his cologne and the sharp scent of expensive paper. She opened drawers quietly, careful not to leave a trace. At the back of the lowest drawer, she noticed a small, thin gap in the wood. When she pressed her fingers against it, a hidden drawer popped open. Inside were several folders, neatly labeled with dates and legal terms. Her eyes scanned over the pages, and her heart dropped. These weren't just business documents. These were property deeds, asset transfers, bank account closures, and there, in clear print, was her signature on every single one. Madison sat down slowly, barely breathing. She hadn't signed any of this, but it was her name, her handwriting, copied again and again. She flipped through the papers and saw her own apartment, the one she owned before the wedding, now signed over to a trust under Jason's name. Her savings account had been closed 2 months earlier, with the balance transferred out the same day. She felt sick. They had taken everything, and she hadn't even seen it happening. As she reached the bottom of the drawer, something else caught her eye. A sealed envelope with Jason's name written in elegant handwriting. She opened it carefully. Inside was a letter from a woman named Elise. It didn't take long to realize she was Jason's ex-fiancé. The letter was short, but chilling. "I don't know what kind of man you've become, Jason," Elise wrote, "but if you ever care about someone again, don't do this to another woman. What you did to me was cruel. I still carry the damage. Don't repeat it." Madison felt a wave of anger and sorrow rush over her. She wasn't the first, and if she stayed silent, she wouldn't be the last. She took photos of everything with her hidden phone, every paper, every forged signature. She placed the files back exactly as she found them. Then she quietly packed a small bag and hid it behind her laundry basket. No sudden moves, no warnings. Madison had seen enough. Now she was planning her exit, careful, quiet, and smart. They had stolen from her once. It wouldn't happen again. Madison didn't know where to start or who to trust, but one name kept coming to mind: Brittany Lopez, an old friend from college. They had lost touch over the years, but Madison remembered Brittany had once worked as a paralegal. She wasn't sure if Brittany would even want to hear from her, but she took the chance and sent a message. To her relief, Brittany responded right away and agreed to meet. When they sat down at a quiet cafe, Madison poured her heart out. She showed Brittany the photos she had taken from Jason's office, the forged documents, the property deeds, the sealed letter from Elise. Brittany listened without interrupting. When Madison finished, Brittany leaned in and said, "This isn't just wrong. It's illegal. What they've done to you is fraud, and probably coercion too." Madison felt hope for the first time in weeks. Brittany offered to help her dig deeper. She had connections, experience, and the determination Madison needed. They started organizing the documents, creating timelines, and identifying what could be used as legal evidence. But Brittany was clear. They still needed more. A strong case needed clear, undeniable proof of intent. They had documents and letters, but they needed someone from the family admitting what they'd done. That's when Madison made a bold decision. She would go back to the estate wearing a wire. Brittany helped her get a discreet recording device. Madison practiced how to ask the right questions without sounding suspicious. She felt nervous, but also strong. This was the only way to get justice, for herself, and maybe for others too. She returned to the estate pretending everything was normal. Jason's parents were polite, as usual, but there was always that coldness underneath. Madison waited until she was alone with Jason's father in the study. She casually brought up the prenup and joked about how complicated it had all been. That's when he laughed. "You think that was a prenup?" he said. "That paper saved us a fortune. We've been doing this for years. You girls never read the fine print." Madison smiled, but inside she was shaking. That sentence was all she needed. Proof, a confession, and it was all on tape. She left the room quietly and drove back to Brittany's place, her hands gripping the wheel tightly. The truth was finally out in the open. They had played their game. Now it was her turn. Madison returned to the estate with a calm face but a racing heart. She had one goal: get Jason's father to talk. Brittany had helped her prepare, and the small recording device hidden in her sweater was working perfectly. All Madison had to do now was play her part, smile, and ask the right questions. She waited for the right moment. Later that afternoon, she found herself alone with Jason's father in his study. He was drinking scotch and flipping through papers. Madison sat across from him and said casually, "I was looking over the documents I signed before the wedding. Some of it was pretty confusing, honestly." He raised an eyebrow and smirked. "That's the point," he said. "If it looked simple, you wouldn't have signed it." She let out a soft laugh, trying not to show the anger bubbling inside her. "So, was it all just to protect Jason's money?" Jason's father leaned back in his chair and gave a proud little nod. "Not just his, the whole family's. We've done this before, you know. These girls come in thinking they're marrying for love, and we make sure they leave with nothing. It's business, nothing personal." Madison's stomach twisted, but she didn't let it show. She nodded slowly, pretending to understand. "I guess that's smart," she said quietly. He smiled wider. "It is. Most women don't read the fine print. You didn't. That made it easy. Those few sentences were all she needed. The audio was clear, and it revealed everything. How they used the same tactic on other women. How they tricked them into signing away rights. And how they saw it as a normal part of their marriage strategy. It wasn't about love. It was about control. Madison smiled politely, stood up, and excused herself from the room. She didn't confront him. She didn't show her rage. She knew better now. Back in her car, she gripped the steering wheel with shaking hands. The recording device was still running, capturing her steady breaths as she finally let herself cry. She had the proof, everything she needed, but she had to stay quiet a little longer. They thought she was still the obedient wife. They had no idea what was coming. Madison knew she couldn't stay in that house much longer. She had the proof. She had the plan. Now, she just needed a way out, without raising suspicion. So, she told Jason she needed a break, a relaxing spa weekend with a few old friends. She acted tired, overwhelmed, and in need of self-care. Jason barely looked up from his phone. "Fine," he said. "Just don't overspend." That Friday morning, Madison packed a small bag with only the essentials. Brittany was already waiting nearby. As soon as Madison stepped out of the estate, she turned off her tracking apps, dumped her monitored phone in a trash bin, and got into Brittany's car. They didn't go to any spa. Instead, they drove straight to a safe house Brittany had arranged through a women's support network. It was small, clean, and quiet, just what Madison needed. For the first time in months, she felt like she could breathe. The next step was legal. With Brittany's help, Madison filed official complaints with a family law attorney, fraud, coercion, and emotional abuse. The audio recordings were submitted as evidence, along with the forged documents and Elise's letter. Everything was carefully organized, already on its way to court. They moved quickly. Madison was done waiting for someone to save her. She was saving herself. Back at the estate, Jason realized something was wrong. Madison wasn't answering his texts. She wasn't posting on social media. He called the spa and found out she'd never checked in. That's when he went to the police and reported her as missing. He told them she had emotional problems, that she was confused, maybe even unstable. He said he feared for her safety, but Madison had already filed her case. Her side of the story had reached the court before Jason's lies ever hit the system. Her lawyer had contacted the authorities ahead of time, explaining everything. When Jason tried to paint her as unstable, the truth was already out there, recorded, written, and protected. Madison watched it all unfold from a distance. She didn't need to argue anymore. She didn't need to prove herself to him. She had escaped, and now it was their turn to feel trapped. The lawsuit was filed quietly, but its impact was loud. Madison's legal team submitted a civil suit against Jason and his family for fraud, coercion, and financial abuse. The evidence was strong: recordings, forged documents, and a clear pattern of manipulation. Her lawyer was confident. Madison had not only been tricked into giving up her rights, but also emotionally and financially controlled in ways no court could ignore. At first, Jason and his family acted unbothered. They had expensive lawyers and a long history of protecting themselves. But as news of the case slowly reached the public, cracks started to show. A small local paper ran a story about the lawsuit, describing it as a high society scandal involving a wealthy family and a mysterious prenup. Then someone found Elise, the ex-fiancé who had written the warning letter. She agreed to speak to the press off the record. Suddenly, people started asking questions. Behind the scenes, Jason's family grew desperate. Madison began receiving strange phone calls and messages. Some were polite, offering settlements to make the lawsuit go away. Others were not so kind, thinly veiled threats telling her to drop this before it ruins you. But Madison had come too far to be scared now. Late one night, unable to sleep, she created a Reddit account and posted her story anonymously. She didn't mention names, but the details were clear enough. She titled it, "They tricked me into signing my life away. Now I'm fighting back." She wrote everything: how the prenup was actually a trap, how she was isolated and gaslighted, how she escaped, and how she was standing up to them in court. The post exploded overnight. Thousands of people upvoted it. Comments poured in, many from women who had faced similar experiences. Legal experts chimed in, praising her bravery. Some even shared the post on other platforms, and soon it was trending. Journalists started digging deeper. Madison's identity was eventually revealed, and when her full story came out, with proof, the public turned against Jason's family. What once was a private battle was now a public reckoning. The Whitmore name, once respected, was suddenly linked with greed and cruelty. Their reputation began to crumble. Madison, once silenced and cornered, now had an army of strangers behind her. She had sparked a fire they couldn't control. The courtroom was packed. Madison sat straight, dressed simply, her hands folded tightly in her lap. Across the room, Jason and his family were surrounded by a team of high-powered lawyers. They looked confident, polished, and completely sure they would win. But Madison knew better. She had the truth and the proof to back her every word. The trial moved quickly. Madison's lawyer presented the audio recordings first. The court heard Jason's father brag about tricking women into signing away their rights. They heard Jason mocking Madison, saying she should have read the fine print. Every sentence hit hard. The judge listened carefully, his expression unreadable. Next came the documents: real estate deeds, bank transfers, forged signatures, all showing how Madison had been stripped of everything without her knowledge. The letter from Elise was read aloud in court. It painted a clear picture of a long pattern of abuse and manipulation, not just against Madison, but against other women too. Then something unexpected happened. Elise, Jason's ex-fiancé, who had avoided the spotlight for so long, agreed to testify. She walked into the courtroom quietly, nervous but determined. She told the judge how she had once loved Jason too, and how his family had done the exact same thing to her. Her testimony shook the room. It proved Madison wasn't alone, and that this was no one-time mistake. It was a plan. Jason's lawyers tried to fight back. They called Madison emotional, dramatic, even unstable. But the facts spoke louder. Every time they tried to twist the story, her lawyer countered with solid evidence. No one could deny what had happened. It was all there, black and white. Finally, after days of testimony and arguments, the judge gave his verdict. The court ruled in Madison's favor. The fraudulent documents were declared void. Her apartment and assets were returned. Jason's family was referred for criminal investigation on charges of fraud, forgery, and financial abuse. The courtroom burst into quiet murmurs. Madison could barely hold back her tears. Jason's reputation took a massive hit. His business partners dropped him. Clients walked away. His name, once tied to wealth and respect, became a symbol of disgrace. As for Madison, she walked out of that courtroom with her head high. She hadn't just won a legal battle. She had taken her life back. Madison's life looked very different now. After winning her case, she didn't just move on. She decided to help others. She joined a women's legal aid group, working with women who had been tricked or trapped by manipulative partners. She used her experience to guide them, share resources, and most importantly, listen without judgment. Every story she heard reminded her of how close she came to losing everything and how lucky she was to get out. But she knew her work wasn't finished. 1 year after the verdict, Madison posted a video online. In it, she told everything. No more hiding names or softening details. She spoke directly and calmly, sharing how Jason's family had used fake prenups and legal pressure to trap her. She included clips of the audio recordings, photos of the documents, and even thanked Elise for her letter and courage to testify. The video went viral within hours. News outlets picked it up, and the story reached people all over the country. More women came forward with similar experiences, involving wealthy families and hidden legal traps. The Whitmore name became a warning, not a legacy. Their social status collapsed, and so did what was left of their business empire. Madison didn't post for attention or revenge. She posted because the truth mattered. She wanted to make sure this wouldn't happen to another woman who thought she was marrying for love, but was being led into a trap. One morning, she sat by her window, sipping tea, a check in her hand, the final settlement. On the table beside her was the same letter Elise had written. She opened it once more, and inside, she noticed a new note scribbled at the bottom, written in Elise's familiar handwriting. It simply said, "We got them." Do you think Madison did the right thing by going public with her story and exposing the Whitmores, or should she have just moved on with her life quietly? Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd really love to hear your thoughts. And if you want to hear more powerful stories like this one, don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss an update.